and welcome to this live with myself, Kate, and we've got the lovely Tony with us today as well, and we're going to be speaking about dogs and children. So firstly, I just thought it'd be nice for any new people in the group just to know who me and Tony are. So I'll just introduce myself, and then Tony, you can introduce yourself. So my name's Kate, obviously, and I own a company called Kate's Canines, and then my behaviour part of the company is called Kate's Canine Solutions, where I have online courses and also work one-to-one with clients to help them have a happier life with their dog. So Tony, what about you?
Well, yeah, thanks for calling me lovely for a start. That's very nice. So yeah, I'm Tony Knight, the dog listener, and the process that we all teach here at the Karma Canine Cooperative is based on, Amish bonding, which I was in at the ground level at. So I've been helping people with their dogs for over 20 years. I'm currently based in Australia, so it's the early evening for me right now. But we'll be coming back to Europe finally because there are travel restrictions lifted. So hoping to come back and do some dog classes and consultations in Europe in the summer. So really looking forward to getting back home. Yeah, so what's great about this is, we can help people regardless of where we are in the world and what time it is, which is awesome, which is why it's early-ish in the morning. I'm not much of a morning person. That's why it's early-ish. But if you've got kids, this isn't early at all, is it? You've been up for hours.
Well, exactly. So yeah, we just thought this was a really good topic to come on and speak about because, you hear of so many stories where there's been some incident with a child and a dog, and we can just prevent those things. So we've got some really lovely questions that I think we can just dive it straight into. The first one was from Andrea, and she was saying that she's got 3 children, a 10, an 8 and a 5-year-old, and they all rough and tumble with their puppy, Indy. She's saying that they play like football, rolling around the floor, chasing, hiding under blankets, and the boys will occasionally get scratched by the puppy. And she does make a growling sound, but Andrea is saying that it's in a playful way. And she's just kind of asking for reassurance whether that is okay. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure you'd say the same thing, but for me, what I would do, Andrea, look, when your boys play among themselves, your attitude is no doubt play nicely or you go to your room. And so, because we don't want it to end in tears, which is the old classic. So basically, you should have the same thing in mind. Now, if the boys are getting scratched by the puppy, it's not necessarily the puppy's being rough. It's just they've got claws, and they scratch us on our skin. And because we've got thinner skin and we haven't got the hair, the fur covering us, it can cause more of an impact. What you're going to be looking out for is if the puppy really starts to ramp up that behavior. If you feel the puppy is starting to go for one of the boys, then you, as the parent, as the supervisor, you can step in, and the naughty one gets put on the naughty step, gets given a timeout. So basically what you're showing them is there is a certain limit to your fun and games. If you overstep that mark, then what happens is you just don't play anymore. So that would be, for me, the best thing to do. Supervising them, is just a general great rule. But you've got kids who are at an age where they can start to learn the rules of this process as well, which is awesome. I would say, 10, 8 and 5, kids can understand, for example, the rules of engagement. One of the things that I do is I talk to, when I talk to people about the rules of engagement with dogs, is make sure that they understand the game Simon Says. And Simon Says is basically the idea, did I ask for this interaction? And so when you teach kids, via the game of Simon Says, the correct way to interact with the dog, then the dog is going to be more respectful for them. The second thing, which of course is key, is understanding the Game of Thrones. As you know, Kate, when you're talking about incidents between kids and dogs, most times that there is a dog bite, unfortunately, it's the family dog and it's a child who's been bitten. And this is not because it's a dog being aggressive. It's because dogs know the rules of don't invade someone's personal space without permission, otherwise you get told off. Now, the reason that not all dogs do this is we've got some very, very calm dogs and very, very, accepting dogs. But there are certain ones out there, because of their personality, that basically go, well, what do you think you're doing? Don't do that again. And of course, that can end up with a problem. So we need to teach children, when they're old enough to learn, the rules of engagement, and that would stop. Just for example, for kids to know you don't go up to a dog, you call the dog to you, would save over 95% of the dog bites happening around the world.
Yeah. And I remember saying, my nan and granddad always used to say, when me and my sisters were playing and it all got a bit too rough, and they were like, it'll all end in tears. That was a saying.
Exactly.
Say. And I think, you know, it's just watching for it getting a little bit too much. And you can see when a puppy or a dog is getting overexcited, can't you? And yeah, as you say, just at that point, just intervene, separate the dog from the children, get everyone to calm down. Because children as well, they can get overexcited.
Yeah, exactly. The kids can get overexcited as well. I mean, and also the fact that the puppy's growling is not necessarily a sign of aggression either. That's just because they can be playful. However, you notice an intensity shift. If the puppy's growling starts to go like up an octave, and gets a bit more consistent, and they're lunging at the kids, then that's where you step in and go, right, that's the end of that bit. You've got to calm down. You've got to you pull it back a few notches. They can still play, and what they learn is self-control, which is the best form of control there is. You learn not to go too far, not to go too hard. Otherwise, you're not in the game anymore, and you can actually lose everybody. And that's like when I was a kid. If I was naughty, which wasn't often, my mum would send me to my bedroom.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That was yes, it was a place where I had my Lego and my my Adam Ant poster. That's how old I am. But it was also, when I was sent there, it was the place I didn't want to be in this room, because I got sent here and the whole world's against me. Do you know what though? I never once thought when it was time to go to bed that evening, I'm not going in that room. I got punished there.
I know,
it's not where you're sent, it's how you're sent. So you can use, for example, if you've got a crate for your puppy, the puppy can go into the crate without a word as a timeout, but the pup won't think, oh, I'm not going in there again. That was, to sleep, that's punishment. It is how you're sent. See, put the dog in the laundry or in the garage or in the bathroom or just in another room without a word, to show them you went too far, calm down. And if they're scratching at the door and shouting to be let out, let me out. Well, we wouldn't do that if our kids were banging at the door and shouting at the door to be let out. We would wait for a little bit of quiet. The same thing applies.
And I think sometimes we just allow dogs to do things that, yes, we wouldn't let our kids get away with, and it's just instilling boundaries, isn't it, with the dog and the children. And so everybody can kind of live in harmony, I guess. So those rules and boundaries are really important. And I would say, if the dog and children are in that kind of playful mode, don't go off into another room where you're not kind of supervising. Just make sure that you're around, just to make sure everything is okay. There's another question on here from Sheila, and she was asking about, which I thought was a really good question, asking about how, because a lot of children are really fearful of dogs, and how to manage that. I remember like a child that I was walking down the street, and this dog just jumped at the pushchair on this child, and this child started screaming. And I was thinking at the time, wow, that is going to be a fear that's going to go on and on and on now for this child. This dog kind of invading the child's space, jumping on it, because it's quite scary for the child. And for children that have got that fear, sometimes it kind of comes from the parents, sometimes it comes from a situation that they've been in with a dog. But how do we help children to overcome that?
I think there are two things we can do here. First of all, is to equip a child who's afraid of dogs with one very simple technique, so the dog is more likely to leave them alone. And that is to not make any eye contact, to ignore the dog. Not turn their back. That's the one thing I would say, not to turn the back, because when we turn our backs, we actually present a more vulnerable side to us. There are places where a dog can bite are either, the most common places are either the face and hands, because somebody's gone into their personal space, or the back of the legs, and sometimes even the back of the neck, because people have turned their back and that side doesn't have teeth. So that's an easier target. So what I would say is, first of all, don't look at the dog, because by not looking at the dog, we are saying two things. First of all, I'm not a threat, just in case that dog thinks you might be. And also, I have a personal space that you should respect, which means a dog understands this, because this is what they do as well. So if the child does that, the dog is less likely to bother them. If the child's in company, when I do my classes, I give people self-defense lessons, if you like, how to protect their dogs from a wayward dog, like the one you just mentioned. But the same thing can be said for how to protect your children from a wayward dog, is to have your children behind you and you stand in front of the dog. And therefore you're a much bigger proposition, and you can, don't look at the dog, but at the same time block it by facing it, and the dog's less likely to come up and have a go. The other thing, of course, is if you want a child to get over their fear, is for them to create a positive association. And so what I would do is have a nice supervised meeting between a child and a dog. But for example, it could be outside, so there's plenty of space. But if it's inside, you want to make sure the dog's on a leash. I mean, you want to make sure the dog's on a leash in both scenarios, because you don't want the dog just to do what you just said about jumping up. Because people might think, oh, my dog's just being friendly. But as we know, that's not the case. That is a dog trying to invade your personal space using height domination. And that's not going to be, and if it's a bigger dog, people are going to go flying. Yeah. So we don't want the dog to be able to do that. So we want a dog you can start off with a calm dog as well, one that's going to take it all in its stride, and have that dog on a leash, come into a room where a child is at a nice, safe distance. One of the films on my ebook, the Think Like a Dog ebook, has about what to do with your dog when visitors arrive. Yeah. And having those rules in place are just as relevant for a child that's afraid of dogs as a child that's not afraid of dogs, because you want to make sure everybody's under control. And then if the child gets too upset, the dog could go further away or go out of the room. The dog, you don't want the child to feel, in a corner, trapped, which is why outside is a good idea. But you want that child to be able to see that this dog is not trying to do anything to them. It's far enough away so it's not really a problem. And you tell them not to pay any attention to the dog, so the dog will just leave them alone. Then you get them starting to think, oh, maybe when I see a dog, I'm not going to die. And so, it's just building up that positive, calm interaction.
And their instinct, the child's instinct is to stare at the dog, isn't it? And because they're fearful of it, so they want to keep an eye on it, and so their instinct is to stare at it and freeze, isn't it? And go, oh, or to run away. And obviously then the dog's either going to chase them, or if they're making eye contact, the dog thinks it's an invitation to come over. So that eye contact is so important. And I think also the parent with the child needs to be super, super calm, and to model to the child like how we need to be around dogs, because if the parent is worked up, it's just going to affect the situation.
That's it. And just briefly there, the calm would come from having a plan. Basically, you've got a plan of action there. It's like you're going to have a distance between the dog and the child. They're not going to meet, so you can't just pretend to be calm. But when you've got the action and you know what you're doing, the calm comes automatically. So that the dog and the child are not going to get together, but you can get them used to each other at a nice, safe distance.
And the confidence comes from that as well, doesn't it? The parent and the child feel confident because they've got a plan. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think
good question, though.
Baby steps, isn't it, for the child? Yeah. And because I know if I was asked to get over my fear of spiders, it would it would take me a while.
Exactly.
So our next question is from Heather, and this is a question that I was wanting to speak about as well. One of my clients is pregnant, which is lovely, and she's got the baby coming soon, but her dog Poppy is really anxious to change, and Heather's saying that she's got her dog and she wants to introduce it to her baby grandchild, and so just those kind of newborn situations, a change for a dog, and how to deal with those situations, especially with an anxious dog that is kind of sensitive to change.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, so I remember I've seen a book over here, which is entitled How to Tell Your Dog You're Pregnant. And I thought, the dog knows before you do, because changes in human biochemistry means that dogs can pick up on somebody who's pregnant, somebody who's got cancer, who's got diabetes, who's got COVID, who's got epilepsy, somebody who's in a bad mood. They know this stuff. So that's kind of a moot point. But what's happening here is you quite rightly said here, Kate, is there's been a change. There's going to be a change, or there is a change. And after any change, a dog will ask questions, particularly when that change is a new pack member that seems pretty helpless. And so dogs can often suddenly go, this is too much. This is why some people, when a new baby arrives, the dog completely changes its personality, because it suddenly goes, I could cope with the previous situation, but I can't cope with this. And what we do by teaching people AB, ambition bonding, is show people how to show the dog, don't worry about this, you have no responsibility. Because that's where the problem comes from, is the dog thinking this is a responsibility too much, I can't cope. So when we take the responsibility away, then the dog has a chance to go, okay, well, if it's not my problem, maybe I don't have to worry about it. And again, it's kind of the same thing we were talking about with the previous question, is if you're going to introduce the dog to a baby, make sure it's all supervised, make sure it's at a distance, make sure that you want the appropriate behavior as well. I mean, not from the baby can't help itself, but from the dog, because some dogs, when they see one, just go, what is that? And why is it here? And I've got a film that my patrons have, if they're members of my Patreon site, they would have seen a film that I did in Melbourne with a dog called Rafferty, who just, when the grandchild came to the house, just flipped his switch. He could not cope. He just panicked and freaked out. Now, Rafferty had other issues as well, which is, all linked to the dog having responsibility. So we worked on that as well to calm him down. But what he really had to do was just learn that if you freak out and get aggressive and you get upset, you're basically going to lose everybody. You're just going to go out. So what happened was I asked people to, bring him in on the leash. And when he freaked out, and he did, then without a word, just put him outside, wait for him to calm down, because you can't talk to a dog when they're panicking. You can't get them to listen. They're not ready. They're stressed out. So you want that adrenaline level to come down to a level where it's good, low enough for them to start to go, what happens next? And so we just kept repeating that, kept repeating it. And if you've seen the film, you'll see how many times it took for Rafi just to be taken out, and again. And then at one point he came and he went, right, what happens if I don't go crazy? At which point his reward was, guess what? You're staying in the room. You finally figured it out, and you were relaxed enough to figure it out.
And how wonderful that he used his own intelligence to do that. He wasn't being forced or, he was figuring out for himself. And so therefore has longer lasting results, because he's like, oh, okay. Because I know what happens if I freak out when I come in the room and the baby's there. So, yeah.
But like I said, if he was still panicking, he wouldn't have got there, because he would still be panicking. The timeout was giving him, basically, it was giving him a timeout to think about it. Away from the stimulation, so he can actually go, all right, so what just happened? I went in there, next it was a blur, and then I was back out here again. So when and I often tell people, you can't tell a dog what you want them to do, but you can show them if you are consistent with your behavior. And sometimes you just have to keep repeating and be patient with it. We're patient with babies. We don't put babies in a high chair and then say, right, little Timmy, I'm going to give you this cookie, providing you say, please, may I have this cookie, because we're English and we like manners. Whoa, that's way over their head. So what we do is we go, ta, ta, and when the baby goes, close enough, well done, you get the cookie. And then it evolves from there. We don't expect them to get it in one moment.
No,
we don't say, thank you, please, for this cookie, I'm going to punch you in the face. We don't do that. We give them time. So it's about giving everybody time and space so they can learn at their own speed.
And we have such high expectations of dogs, don't we, in our human world? And it's almost unfair just to expect them to get it right straight away, and it's learning.
Yeah.
For you and for
I have to say, cats can get away with murder.
Yeah.
And if a baby crawls up to a cat and the cat goes, the people go, yeah, probably don't go up to the cat, or put the cat out of the way, because it's a cat. But if a dog was to go, get off me, people would go, well, that's an aggressive dog that's just bitten a child. We should kill it. Not understanding the way that a dog thinks, because we forget that dogs are dogs. And that for me is always fascinating, which is why the ebook's called Think Like a Dog, because I just keep banging on about it. When we think like a dog, it makes a lot of sense. Not only what dogs do, but actually what human beings do.
Yeah.
Without even realizing it.
I think as well, if you're pregnant and you've been following dog listening, then your dog's already kind of seeing you as the one with the responsibility and listening to your answers, questions. And I think, just getting them used to those kind of tools that you'd use for a child. So like, the push chair, the cot, getting them used to those slight changes and just maybe having one at a time, just building them in gradually. And and just giving the dog time and space just to figure everything out. And they may have some questions around the objects that are appearing in the house. But again, it just gives you, rather than baby arriving, bam, all this new stuff, you know, just really gradually getting them used to it. And I think as well, when we've got babies, what we do as humans, isn't it? Our voices go higher pitched. And we go, oh, they're so cute like this. And then dogs like, whoa, what the hell's going on? And so, yeah, it's just, again, like you said, and it's similar to dogs that are reactive to visitors coming, isn't it? You know, if they react, they don't get to be with you. And it's just that repeating. So they're going to have to get used to the higher pitched voices, aren't they?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, like you said, if the dog sees you as the decision maker, then that's okay. However, that's where a problem can lie, because if a dog believes it's the decision maker, it's the responsible one, in a dog's mind, you have basically, this is your responsibility as the top canine, is ensure survival of your group. And you do that in three ways. You provide food, you protect from danger, and you breed. So the leaders are the breeders. So when somebody who's lower down the food chain, so to speak, suddenly breeds, a dog can go, what did you just do? Now, that can be, and that's why a dog can go, well, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. It should be me doing this, not you, because I'm the one with the best genetics, because I'm the one that's the decision maker. So where AB comes in is to show the dog, actually, no, I'm the decision maker, which means I was perfectly entitled and able to have, to breed. It's not a problem. But you can see the confusion for some dogs because of the role that they're sure they've got. And the reality of the situation they find themselves in mean that the two aren't compatible, and some dogs will just go, I can't cope. Bang. So we're there to go, don't worry about it. Doing AB shows your dog, no matter what the question, that you've got the right answer and the dog can relax. But like you said, understand that when something new happens, like you bring friends of mine who were having kids 10 years ago, it was like, all of a sudden, everything in their life was foldable. Do you know what I mean? It's just all this. They take the boot out of the boot of their car. They take all these little transformers that suddenly go, playpen and pram and cot and climbing frame. And it's like, how did you? That was all in your car. And so you've got all this stuff going on, and the dog might go, I don't know what this is either. So before the baby's even arrived, you can get them used to just the presence of them. And even, for example, teaching a dog to walk correctly with an empty pushchair is a really good idea, rather than waiting for the baby to be put in it, because you don't want the dog to go, well, these are two things I have no idea about. The dog is already used to the pushchair, and you can see how the dog's reacting to it. And then when the baby gets into it, it's just another element to something they're already aware of. So you can definitely prepare ahead, which we do when a baby comes. You do think, we better paint this room to be a nursery or whatever. So there is preparation. But understand the dog will go, well, who's this and what are they doing here and what's my responsibility? Yeah, it's understandable.
I think the first meeting of a dog and a baby, I think it's always wise to have a lead on, just in case, just so you can control the situation. Yeah, not on the baby.
No, look, my mum had a lead on me when I was little, because I'd just be dashing off places, and we lived in Wimbledon, so I could have gone off anywhere. So I was actually on a lead at an early age.
Of the reins.
I don't know. 1970s, they could get away with stuff then.
Did you walk nicely on your lead though?
I walked quick. I would just suddenly go, I'm off here. I've seen something. So
we just had a question come through. I'm not sure of the name of the person because of what we're using Restream, but it says, do adults also not turn their body away when a dog jumps up?
Well, the thing that happens, definitely, when you watch dogs interact, you can see it's very ritualized. And what happens is they are aware if they start running away, that is a vulnerable situation for them. That's a vulnerable way of doing it. So, they try not to run that quick, because like you said, they'll get chased. So they stand very stiff and straight. And above all, you'll notice no eye contact. No eye contact is made, because they want to show them, leave me alone. A lot of this is passive. They don't want to get into a fight, obviously, because in a fight you could get injured, and that could change your chances of survival. But a lot of this is demonstrative among the canines, including dogs, obviously, that when they get together, so you see that standing up tall and not making eye contact they stiffen. Everybody's seen this. They'll just suddenly go stiff, the tail can go up, but it's like just no sudden movements. No sudden movements.
Yeah.
But they are aware that the backside is vulnerable. So that's why sometimes they will turn around. But yeah, watch it. You see it with dogs in a park, and you see it with wolves, you see it with coyotes, you see it with dingoes, you see it everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think another really interesting thing to talk about is actually children and food, because you've got your toddlers in your high chairs and the food's flying around everywhere. Maybe children walking around eating, and obviously a dog that they're opportunist eaters, and they're just going to take their chance to eat any food that they can. How should people control that kind of situation, and what kind of message is it giving to the dog if the children's throwing food across the room for the dog?
Well, I mean, the message the dog gets is, right, when this one eats, get ready. There's going to be stuff. So you can understand the dog's going, okay, any minute now. So what I would do, if you want to make sure, because sometimes what can happen is the dog can just take it up a notch. And like you say, the problem is when they start taking food from the child's hand. And so, for example, what I think is a very good idea is when a baby's being fed, eating in the high chair, the dogs are out of the way. Okay, they can do their vacuum cleaner service when the child's finished eating. Just get them out of the way so there's no confusion. If a kid's walking around with food, again, you've got to supervise, because we think the other issue, of course, dogs are very aware of height. And the thing is with kids is they're kind of at the same height as the dogs. So there's, when we can stand up, we have a big advantage over dogs by standing up on our, erect. And when the kids have it, they don't have this. They're also in the same eye line. So like you said earlier, if a kid's staring at the dog's going, what? Why are you in my face? What do you want? And so if the dog is, if the kid's walking around with food in its hand, supervise or have the dogs out of the way. And if the dog takes the food from the child's hand, I think the dog should get a timeout for that, because that's not the same as taking food that's been abandoned. That is actually taking candy from a baby, so to speak. It's like that's not on. They haven't finished. So for that, they should be given a consequence. But you've got to supervise that in order to know that it's happening. And, as parents, your back's turned for a second, and all of a sudden they're up to mischief. So accidents can happen sometimes, but if you're aware of something going on and you act upon it, you give the opportunity for the dog to learn, right, well, I can't do that because I get a consequence I don't like. However, if I don't try and take that food from the child's hand, and then the child's finished with it, it's all mine, apparently. So they will, use that self-control if they're given, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, you choose. And
I think as well, know your dog's personality. I know that my dog Teddy, he is very food orientated. He loves his food, and I just wouldn't trust him around a child carrying some food, because I don't have children myself. I just don't know that situation. So I would always, if there was children eating, I would always put him away, just because I just don't know, and I'm just controlling the situation. And I think, like most things we've talked about today, it is about controlling the situation with your dog, isn't it? And not setting either the child or the dog up to fail in a serious way.
But you're managing the dog for what it is. We're understanding the dog has a nature. We're not denying it. So you manage it. And with a child that's too young to understand the rules of interaction, etc., then you supervise them to make sure, better safe than sorry. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the same could be
in most cases. Dogs are fantastic with kids, but we still have to understand that they are dogs, and so they have a certain way of thinking. Let's work with that, not deny it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, as we said at the beginning, educate your children to the rules. Don't go up to your dog when it's eating. Like we don't want the dog going up to the child when it's eating. It's the same, isn't it? It's personal space and boundaries, and educating both sides. And then I think the same could be said for children with toys. A lot of dogs will use objects like children's toys as trophies because they think, oh, well, this gets a reaction. If a dog's running around with a stuffed toy, a precious stuffed toy of the child's, and everyone's running around after it.
Big reaction.
High value trophy.
Oh look, kids see toys as trophies as well. You know, me and my sister, when we were little, we would fight over the same toy, which didn't make much sense. And then one of us had won the fight. We weren't interested in playing with that toy because it was nothing to do with the toy. It was all about the trophy and the status symbol.
Yeah.
So yeah, with dogs and children with toys, is again, make sure it's supervised, make sure the dog can't be stealing stuff and getting attention for it.
Yes. Yeah.
If the dog is, trying to do that, then they don't get any attention, but they do get a consequence. It's the same thing. So if you do the right thing, you get the reward. You do the wrong thing, you get the consequence. And similarly, children shouldn't be going up teasing the dog because the kid can get a timeout as well. So the kid learns the right way to behave. So everybody just needs to know the boundaries. Everybody just needs to know the rules. And as soon as the kids are old enough to learn, teach them. Yes, teach them the right way, and we'll solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that we wanted to cover, and we've reached the 30-minute mark. We kept to time, Tony. Well done. But yeah, I think this isn't just about looking at the dog and the child in isolation. You have to follow the whole approach. You have to follow everything in order for this to work. And so often people will look at one problem with their dog and only fixate on that, and you have to look at the bigger picture. And
because there's a reason why. That's it. There's a reason why it's happening. So deal with the reason why, and then the little spot fires that we've talked about, you can deal with because you put a whole system of prevention in place anyway. Yeah,
and that's why Amish and bonding, dog listening, is so good, because you've almost done that foundation work already. And then when your dog pops up and asks a question, you've got all the tools right at your fingertips to be able to answer that question, which is lovely.
And the dog goes, thanks for the reassurance. I needed that because this thing's making a hell of a racket.
Yeah.
And smells. Oh.
So if people are thinking now, right, how do I learn about this dog listening? How do I learn about AB? How can they go about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, being on this this Facebook group means you're going to get lots of great information from likes of yourself and myself and all the rest of the team. But we've also got various booklets and ebooks. I've got a whole range of ebooks on my website and the Patreon site as well, which has got lots of training films. You've got your classes over in the UK. I've got my classes here in Australia. So there are plenty of ways that people can learn, and it almost doesn't matter where they are, really. Because one thing I will say for parents is you're kind of going to be time poor. If it's a baby, you're not going to have a lot of time. But there will be times when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you've got to feed or wipe or change or whatever, and you're thinking, oh, God, I can't get to sleep. Okay, stick on an audio book. I've got an audio book you can learn at times which are convenient to you. And wherever you are in the world, if you can't attend one of our classes or get a consultation, we're online. But there's loads of ways you can learn. It's just and asking questions on things like this as well. No doubt we'll do more subjects. The whole team will do more subjects as we go along. But you'll see there's a constant. The micro element is the little spot fires we've been talking about. The macro, the large picture, is show your dog that it can trust you. Then when stuff happens, your dog's more likely to listen to you.
Yeah, I think a really good starting point is to read your book, Think Like a Dog. It gives you. And a lot of people need further help going on from that, but it gives you that all that information, and it makes the whole process clearer for you. And audiobooks are great, aren't they? And lots of people are listening to podcasts now, more audiobooks, on the go. Exactly. My course I've split it up into little 30-minute videos. It's really accessible just to kind of listen to in the background if you don't have time to kind of sit down and read a book. So lots of opportunities to learn about it. So all right, well, thank you so much, Tony, and it was really lovely to speak with you about dogs and children.
All right, nice one. Speak to you again.
Okay, bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.